Solo World Traveler here. This week I am headed to Charleston, South Carolina. I'm going to be taking a connecting flight from Chicago down to Charleston. I'm going to be taking a historical tour of the city. I'm going to have a couple beautiful dinners, a group outing of 38 people, and a couple long flights. Let's go. My fourth trip of 2026 is a committee meeting in Charleston, South Carolina. Starting out in Toronto, the weather was pretty bad this day, and it's the middle of February, so I knew I could be in for some long flight delays or cancellations. This is simply the reality in northern US states and across Canada. In the winter months, you just need to be prepared and expect delays. Air Canada doesn't fly direct to Charleston, so I needed to take a connector, and the best option I could find was a connection through Chicago O'Hare. Generally speaking, when I travel, I need to take a connection. I take a close look at where the connecting airport is in relation to my final destination. I find that this is really helpful because it keeps the total amount of time in the air to a minimum, and the connections are generally shorter. I also will never book a connection where the time is less than 2 hours at or through the connecting airport. As you'll see, this strategy worked out pretty well on my flight home. Unfortunately, in this case, the best option was Chicago for connections. Charleston, as most of you know, is on the Atlantic Ocean in the southeastern US, so I'm flying west to then go back east. It's not ideal, but I was really lucky in this case because there was lots of flight cancellations in Toronto and along the East Coast with another winter storm coming in. Because I was flying to Chicago and then down to Charleston, I basically flew around the storm, which was pretty awesome. My flights also ran mostly on time, and this was all really lucky. I'm not usually this lucky, but in this case, it all worked out really well. In Chicago, I had about 90 minutes between flights, as my first flight was delayed a little bit, and on my way to my gate, I found a Chicago Cubs-themed diner. I took note of the location of it, and I'll definitely have to check this place out if I ever have more time to kill at O'Hare Airport. O'Hare Airport is huge. It has 7 or 8 different terminals and a long labyrinth of walkways that you have to walk to get between them. The signs are pretty clear and the gates are all alphabetical, so I was able to find my way through the airport and make my way to my gate for my flight to Charleston pretty easily. In Charleston, I had booked our group into the Courtyard by Marriott Charleston Historic District. It's a nice little hotel right downtown, very close to the historic area and the markets in downtown and historic areas of Charleston, so that's why we picked it and had good meeting space for us. Pretty simple hotel with a very simple lobby, really nice lounge area off to the side, and it actually has really nice meeting space. If you're doing a committee meeting or a group meeting of about 40 or 50 people, it's ideal. My room was pretty basic. It has the one thing that I don't like, which is hardwood floors, but it had a nice open king bed. Pretty simple amenities, a very simply laid out hotel. You can tell again that this is probably an older hotel that has been renovated. Again, the trick that I always look at is the shower stall and bathtub, because they don't usually renovate those, but the bathroom was nicely done. Very, very simple and basic appointments. This hotel is a lot more affordable than other hotels, as I found out. One of our members that wanted to extend here actually found out that there were hotel prices that were hundreds of dollars more expensive at other properties. So if you're needing to stay right downtown and you're on a budget, this is a good option. The main sleeping area here, the bed's big and open. It is definitely set up for a business person. They had a nice desk set up here where I could do work, small little TV, and a wardrobe area for my clothes. It had all the proper amenities to it as well. I'll show you here as I open this up. You'll see that this is standard in almost every hotel. You get your ironing board, your iron, you get hangers, you get the little rack there that you can put your suitcase on to spread out your clothes. There was lots of available seating. This is another thing I always check for, that I always make note of, is do they have proper charging points? This one doesn't really have the most modern ones, so I can tell it's a little bit older renovation, but it has lots of available charging options and connectivity options with really simple artwork. This trip of mine is a planning committee meeting with a group that I work with every year, and there's always an opportunity to explore the city that we meet in a little bit, which is a real benefit. This time we had the chance to take a historical walking tour. The downtown area of Charleston is primarily known as the Peninsula, or simply downtown. It's situated between the Ashley and Cooper rivers. This historic 4 to 5 square mile area consists of several distinct neighborhoods, including the French Quarter, south of Broad, and the Historic District, which was the focus of our tour. Founded in 1670 as Charlestown and named for King Charles II, Charleston is South Carolina's oldest city and was a key colonial hub. It is famously known as the site of the first shots of the Civil War at Fort Sumter in 1861, and as a major, tragic entry point for nearly half of all enslaved Africans brought to the United States. In Charleston, the main crop that was grown in the 1800s was rice, so slave owners specifically wanted to bring slaves from Angola in southwest Africa, because Angola also grew rice, and Angolans were experienced in harvesting this. Because of this, Angolan culture, primarily through the Gula Geechee community, is deeply embedded in Charleston's history, cuisine, arts, and traditions. During the tour, it was really great to hear the amount of which Charleston has embraced and maintained Gula Geechee culture, where it is celebrated today. Victorian architecture in Charleston, South Carolina is uniquely defined by its adaptation to the humid coastal climate and the blending of ornate post-Civil War styles with traditional low country features. Key characteristics include gingerbread woodwork, vibrant colors, and asymmetrical Queen Anne designs that often feature arcade two-story piazzas or porches, which are designed along with the position of the building for maximum breeze and minimum sunlight exposure. Summers in Charleston are hot and humid, with temperatures in the mid-90s with high humidity and subtropical climate, and the locals adapted to this. Charleston was visited often by George Washington, and there are monuments and parks that are dedicated to his impact on the city. George Washington was the #1 celebrity when he visited, with many state dinners and all-night parties held in his honor. Charleston was well known for having an abundance of attractive women, which George Washington once famously commented, "There are 257 beautiful women in Charleston." Nobody knows why the number was so specific, but large groups of women often approached George to welcome him when he came to town. The Declaration of Independence was first read aloud in the State House on August 5th, 1776, 1 month after its original signing and first reading in Philadelphia. The Four Corners of Law in downtown Charleston, located at the intersection of Broad and Meeting Streets, features 4 historic buildings representing different legal pillars. There's a federal building, a county building, City Hall, and St. Michael's Anglican Church on each of the corners. The U.S. Customs House in downtown Charleston is unique as the city's only major monumental classical revival building. Designed with granite and marble to rival federal buildings in Washington, started in 1849 and completed in 1879, its construction was heavily delayed by the Civil War, leaving it as a rare, enduring symbol of federal authority in the post-war South. The Charleston City Market, operating since 1807, has continuous operation across 4 city blocks, surviving centuries of natural disasters. It features a distinctive open-air design, and it showcases traditional low-country culture, most notably the century-old hand-woven sweetgrass baskets that are made inside. Additionally, it hosts a night market, the Southeast's largest. Finally, the next day, we got down to work with our planning committee meeting. We had a lunch, and then we had meetings throughout the day, ending around 5 p.m. At the end of the meeting, we headed back down to the Historic District to have drinks and dinner at a couple unique places. The first was Church and Union, a beautifully restored church that has been converted into a restaurant and bar, and then over to Tempest, another restored traditional building next door. I had to plan for dinner for 43 of us, and the menu featured simple classics like steak frites, a chicken or a rigatoni main course for the group to choose from. The meal and the wines they had to offer were all top-notch, and if you've ever been to Charleston or if you're ever going to Charleston, you have to check out Church and Union. Even if you stop by for a drink, it's one of the most beautifully restored buildings for a restaurant that I've ever seen. Finally, the next day, it was time to head home. I had to head straight out of our meeting right to the airport, as my flight was taking off only a couple hours after the meeting ended. For the trip back, I was connecting through Chicago again, and the only way I was getting back to Toronto in decent time Friday night was if I took an earlier flight. I've mentioned this before. In the winter months, I'll never book a connection that departs less than 2 hours before my first flight lands. United Airlines turns their planes around at airports super quick. While my flight was showing as being on time, on the United app I could see that the inbound flight was about 25 minutes late. I knew that this would delay my flight to Chicago by at least that amount of time. It takes a good 45 minutes for a typical United flight to get to the gate, get everyone off, clean the plane, change crews, and then board. Large planes for longer flights will take closer to 90 minutes. Charleston Airport is a small regional airport. It doesn't have a lot of international flights, and you do have to take connectors to it from most areas of the States, but it was a nice little airport, clean, very well maintained with some nice restaurant options. Seemed like a nice spot. I really didn't have a lot of time to stay in that airport as my flight was going to take off pretty soon. The flight back to Chicago was smooth, and I knew I had enough time to find my gate, even if it was 3 terminals over at O'Hare. As luck would have it, my departure gate was the same gate as my arrival gate. I've actually never seen this happen before, so I was pretty lucky, and I had time to relax a bit before boarding my flight back to Toronto. In Toronto, the weather was much colder and it was a little snowy, but I was happy to be back. Coming back into Pearson Airport, I'm pretty experienced at this, so I'm always able to time it perfectly between heading through customs and then at the exact right time ordering my Uber. So by the time I get down to the ground level at Terminal 1, I'm able to basically walk straight out. The Ubers pick up at Terminal 1 on the lower level or ground level. They don't pick up at arrivals or departures. So you have to know that, and I'm able to get right there, and my Uber driver and car are usually waiting for me right when I arrive. Charleston is a beautiful city with a vibrant downtown, tons of history, beautiful architecture. It looked like it was a really nice time. It had beautiful, right on the Atlantic Ocean. I was glad to add this city to my list, and I highly recommend it for anybody who wants to travel down there. I was very impressed. If you like videos like this, hit like, hit subscribe, and follow me for travel tips, advice, and adventure at Solo Travel 44.